Hi, I'm John Mayfield, the real estate tech guy, with another Global Real Estate School podcast. Thanks for joining the podcast today. I'm very excited that I have one of my former students who was in Global Real Estate School, in the online school. And I'm telling you what, we're friends on Facebook, and she is doing an amazing job. And she's in the Branson, Tri-Lakes area, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. So thank you, Kera, and I'll let you kind of introduce yourself to the group.
Hi guys, my name is Kera Whaley. I am a realtor with Lakeland Realty out of Kimberling City. So I service all of the Tri-Lakes area. So the Bull Shoals, Taneycomo, Table Rock area is my main expertise. So that has been a learning experience being in a lake community, because there are a lot of of things that you normally don't run into in real estate. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I mean, one thing probably is just scheduling showings, because and by the way, it is a beautiful area if you've never been there, to the Branson area. But a lot of the roads are kind of winding, and it's around a lake and hills. And so I'm sure scheduling appointments can be a challenge.
Yeah, the roads are extremely curvy in this area, which does pose a little bit of a problem when it does come to schedule showings, because even if your showing is only 10 miles away, it takes you 45 minutes to get there because of all the winding roads, and you're trying to get around the lake or a river arm. And so, it does typically take a little bit longer to, accommodate showings in this area.
Interesting. So tell us a little bit about, you got your license. I mean, walk us through how you started your career. And I mean, you just, like you said, you haven't been licensed very long, but you've had several closings. You get listings a lot, and you have your own website up now and domain name. But walk us through those early stages.
So back in 2012, I was a stay-at-home mom, and I was getting very bored. And so I decided to apply to be a mailroom clerk at a mortgage center. And as the longer I worked there, I ended up progressing through and becoming a mortgage processor. And I don't know, it was like the second that I started reading those documents and stuff like that, I just kind of started to form a crush on real estate. And so I was in the mortgage industry up until the beginning of 2018. I was a mortgage processor as well as a mortgage loan originator for a short time. But then I had moved to the Branson area and decided that I really wasn't interested much in loans anymore, as I wanted to focus more of my efforts on, being a real estate agent. And so I started, I pretty much formed an apprenticeship with another agent in the Tri-Lakes area, and was their administrative assistant for about a year before I got officially licensed. And so I learned a lot during that time. That's one of the things I always recommend, is finding somebody, to mentor you, or join a team, because having those extra people around with, their expertise, it really makes a difference. It really does. And so it was a big jump for me to actually get licensed, because it was always something I wanted to do, but it finally, took a push from a few different people, and I finally just, jumped right into it, and I'm glad I did.
Great. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually tell people that a lot. It's not a bad idea to hook up with a team or with an experienced agent, because even like I still list and sell real estate. My daughter helps me. She got her license, and she actually works another job. She's a cosmetologist, and so she has a pretty good career there, but she's flexible with her hours there and can help me with my real estate business. but it's been a huge help for me to have somebody, and well worth me to pay the extra fees. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Well, so you kind of you touched on why you wanted to get into real estate. And I know sometimes this podcast will be on my website. There are people probably watching it that are saying, are there too many real estate agents? But I'm just curious, your thought. I mean, yes, there are a lot of agents, but you've probably seen as in the mortgage business and working on the team, there's a lot of people that don't put the right amount of effort or time into it. So, I mean, I know you're working really hard, but what's your thoughts or philosophy about, have you seen people maybe got in the business the same time you did, but they just didn't put any effort in, or what? I'll let you talk about that. So.
Yeah, I do believe a lot of it is you have to be self-driven. You can't get discouraged the first time and just stop. You have to keep going. There's no way around it. And I mean, alone in the Tri-Lakes Board of Realtors, I believe the board told me they have roughly about 600 members. And so hearing that number right off the bat, you're like, oh, that market's completely saturated with realtors. But in reality, there's not. There's maybe, 75 to 150 or so that are actually active, and made this like their full-time job.
Right.
And so ultimately that's the goal, though, is to make real estate your full-time job, but it takes a lot of perseverance and a lot of heartbreak to get there.
Right. Exactly. My mom always says all sunshine makes a desert. And I've reminded myself of that, because it's not just, sometimes people think it's just money falling in your lap, but you have to put a lot of hard work in, like you said, and there's some heartbreak along the way.
Oh, yeah. My very first property that I ever showed was a piece of land, and it was a $50,000 piece of land. And I went out and showed it, and they wrote an offer on it. And I was so excited and so happy. And after it was submitted and accepted, my buyers ghosted me. They just disappeared, and nobody could find them. I don't know what happened, but it absolutely crushed me. But then when I got home and I got to thinking about it, I thought to myself, well, then they weren't serious anyway. So why waste my time on crying about it, when it probably would have happened eventually with them anyways.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point.
You have to keep that mentality that things always happen for a reason.
That's right. So what advice would you give to a brand new agent? We talked about maybe hooking up with a team, but what are some things they really need to think about doing to be successful right after they pass the test? What would you encourage?
Don't spend money you don't have.
Okay, good point.
That is a big one. Do not spend money you do not have. People talk about, I put $1,000 a month, towards Zillow and stuff like that. And that's because those agents have that type of marketing budget. You should only have an overhead that you yourself are comfortable with, and one that you can afford. So, and to be honest, I have a very tiny overhead, but have actually been doing pretty well. But people always have this mentality that the more money you put into something, the more you get back, which that's not the reality of the situation. I mean, for years, real estate thrived on cold calls and door knocking, which have become almost obsolete at this point. A lot of people don't want to door knock and stuff like that. But what a lot of people need to remember is that is the cheap way to do it. Getting out there and doing the legwork, and generating your own leads is, I know that it's scary, but you really have to open yourself up and really market your sphere. That spreads the word to their friends. That was how I originally started, was I started doing things for friends, and their friends told their friends, and, it ended up circling back. And another thing that I would recommend too is that the economy seems to think that the realtor is an extremely pushy person. Like, whenever you introduce yourself as a realtor, it's almost like people give you this weird look like, I don't know that I want to talk anymore. It's like you're going to try to shove a house down my throat, which in reality, that's how I don't operate that way.
Right.
I'm not a pushy salesman. I let them come to me, and people appreciate that, and it allows them to come back because they know that they can trust that they are in a safe environment, that I'm not going to be trying to shove anything down their throats. And it's so nice to be able to have a conversation with somebody and just answer their questions. And then, if it forms into something, great. If not, you provided education for someone. So
those are excellent points. And I totally agree with you. It's a business and you have to watch your expenses. And there are many things you can do that don't cost you money, like knocking on doors or calling, cold calling, and be conscious. I know people was watching might say, well, you have the do not call list. Well, yes, you can go look up phone numbers and be respectful. Be respectful. If someone says, I really don't want you calling back, make sure that you highlight that number and don't call them back. But just sending cards, reaching out to people and doing it consistently. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a coach. She's a real estate coach. And she said she has a group she's working with in Boston. And the problem they're running into is they prospect real hard. They get a bunch of deals going and then they quit prospecting. And then their business dries up and then they have to go out and prospect again. And she was saying, I try to remind them they have to keep what you just talked about, those things on an even keel all the time. So
you have to keep up the momentum.
You do, yes. So now you use social media a lot. Anything you want to add to that?
I think it's, for me, honestly, it has not worked as well as some other agents, may have success with it. I myself have not found it to be as successful as other agents might. I think that marketing my sphere, that's a good way to do it, but to generate leads proves to be a little bit more difficult. I've tried boosting posts with, Facebook and stuff.
Right.
I would just advise people to be cautious, with social media generating, because it does get expensive, if you put too much into it, and you may see very little results.
So and just as a side note, I've been seeing your post on social media, and I'm a tech guy and I talk about technology a lot. And I always explain that technology doesn't normally sell the property. And I say that about social media. I think social media is to me, it's more of a PR tool. And you do a great blend of being who you are yourself, but then throwing in some real estate post. So for me, looking on the outside, and I guess I'm saying if I was in your sphere of influence, my thought process is, wow, Kara's doing really pretty good as a real estate professional, which you are. But, you really, I think, still, because I'll be honest with you, I almost hate Facebook. I've been on it since '06, and I wish it would go away. But yet, I strategically try to keep posts out there about the school and about me because I don't want to disappear amongst all the other agents. So I think you do a good job with social media, but that's a great point. Be cautious about advertising because there are lots of other ways, as you mentioned, that you can get business. So I think I had one or two more questions. I always like to keep the podcast somewhat. We need to talk about Global Real Estate School and the exam. What would you tell students who are going through the school or thinking about going through the school, advice on preparing or studying?
Well, one of the features that I loved about your school is that you can, rewind to where you need to re-listen to things. And that's what I did a lot of the time was, even though you could skip to the next section, I sat on that section for a little bit, took my notes, and even the things that seemed like, moot, things that a lot of people wouldn't have wrote down, I wrote down anyways.
Right.
They may be small things, but that small thing could be on the test. And that was actually the case on 2 separate questions that, it seemed like something small, but it was on the test. So
Yes.
take notes on everything. whenever I went to go take my test, I sat in my car with my notebook from Global Real Estate, and I just sat there for about an hour before going into the testing center and just crammed my brain with everything over again. And, I think by doing that, it keeps everything very fresh in your brain. I think that Global Real Estate School was a great investment for me. I tried going through a real estate school before this one, and you definitely get what you pay for. It was just a online go as you please. There was no audio on anything. There was no instructors to help you, and it was very difficult. And you struggle with it. So I advise people to definitely look into an interactive school such as yours, because it helped tremendously. And I don't think I could have passed it without you, John. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah. I think I remember you reached out to me on the instant message, and we had a kind of a couple long conversations because you had some questions. And I remember you had said you'd gone through another school. I forgot about that. But, I've had several students say, hey, we heard about a loan amortization chart on the table on the test, and they've been just freaking out. Well, I got a copy of the table from the Real Estate Commission, and yesterday I did a 50-minute live streaming video to send to all my students because I really want them to pass the test. And nothing thrills me more than to see someone like you who's just having such good success. And I know as a mom and a wife, and to me, although real estate does take some time, it does allow you the flexibility. My advice, and maybe you already have this, is don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry, I'm already booked for that time. It was hard for me to say no to people. And my mom would say, hey, if you have an appointment with your family, you have an appointment, put that on your calendar, and don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry, but I'm already booked at that time. They don't need to know that you're going to Silver Dollar City or,
No, well, and that's the thing. No, but, in my opinion, that is on a need to know basis. If you tell people that you have a different engagement and you can't show them property, they don't need to know the specifics. I do the same thing. My daughter is an honor choir, and at her last concert, there was an investor that was calling me while I was at her concert. And even though he is, could potentially be a, high dollar client, I was still at my daughter's concert, and I let it ring out, because in the end, that's what's important. You can put it all in, all your effort and your time, and then you're going to sit back and go, where did the time go? Because when I first came out of school, that's what I did, was I just hit the pavement and just kept going, and wasn't setting time aside for anything else. And then I stopped myself and thought, well, holy crap, that was 3 months ago. And, there was a lot of time I could have spent with my family, but I just put too much of myself into my work, which in real estate, this is the industry where you can find a good balance for family time and for work. Definitely take advantage.
I'm actually we're getting ready to launch a coaching program, and that's one of the key points I'm going to help new agents with, is understanding that you've got to make time for your family and for yourself, because you'll burn out. But you're doing great. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I know you have an appointment, so I didn't want to keep you this long, but
you're fine.
Thank you so much. So, all right. Well, again, check us out at globalrealestateschool.com. And why don't you tell people how, your company office phone number, in case someone is looking to buy or sell in the Branson, or other agents. I have agents around the state. They may have referrals, but you are with...
I'm with Lakeland Realty in Kimberling City. Our office number here is 417-739-LAKE. That's 5253.
Okay, great. And you have a website if they want to look at property. You just put up, didn't you?
I did. I actually just launched my website. It is www.tablerockhomesearch.com.
Great. So if you have referrals or you're thinking about buying down in the Branson area, it's a beautiful area. I just stayed at the Big Cedar Lodge. It's the first time I'd ever been there. And that was
it's
like
gorgeous there.
It was amazing. And they have, there's if you like boating or fishing or just that's a great place for a second home. So, well,
Definitely.
thank you, Kera. Again, I appreciate it. Have a great day, and we appreciate your time and sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, John. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the podcast for Global Real Estate School. I'm John Mayfield, the Real Estate Tech Guy. Go out and make it a great day.